Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Horton. I am a Youth Involvement Specialist with Youth United and Youth M.O.V.E. Michigan.
And I'm Kimarian Thacker. I'm a youth advocate with Black Family Development and Youth United.
And today we are going to be talking to you guys about conducting youth focus groups. I wanted to give a little bit of a background on what we do here in Wayne County in Michigan. And so I've been with Youth United for almost about 7 years now, and I recently just was given the title of Youth Involvement Specialist, and so now I am overseeing all of our youth involvement projects across Wayne County, and then just helping move along with Youth M.O.V.E. Michigan as well. And so we have 4 chapters in Youth M.O.V.E. Michigan. We have Youth M.O.V.E. Detroit, Youth M.O.V.E. Saginaw, K-M.O.V.E., which is in Kalamazoo, and then we also have Kent County Youth M.O.V.E. And so those are some of the things that we're doing here in Wayne County. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so a little bit about Youth United. Youth United is a youth-led initiative whose purpose is to promote youth voice and positive youth involvement throughout Wayne County's system of care. And so that primarily means that we work with young people who've been involved in juvenile justice, foster care, special education, mental health, all of those different systems. And so we do a lot of work with everyone within those systems. We don't just do mental health. And so we do a lot of cross-system work here in Wayne County. So I wanted to get an idea of who we have in the room and what your roles may be in the work that you're doing when it comes to young people. And so you can feel free to unmute yourself and share the questions, or you can type them in the chat box, whichever one you prefer. So who would like to go first? Anyone would like to go first?
We actually have all the participants muted, so we're going to go ahead and use that public chat box. We do have a lot of folks online with us, so we're just going to encourage them to share that information in the public chat.
Okay. So I have a couple of folks who put something in the chat box. I also have someone who said they're having a difficult time hearing me. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to move the phone closer. Okay, so we have Rolando who is a Wraparound Solutions in Everson, Wyoming. And we have Janet, who is in Chastity, Georgia, Taylor, Georgia, which is a regional PBIS facility with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. Okay. We have Central Regional Youth Partner, Youth Power of Families together in New York State. We have, moving too fast, we have Frederick Scarberry, who is a Youth Engagement Specialist in the System of Care in Hancock County, which is in Ohio. We have someone from Syracuse, New York, and Albany, New York as well, as the statewide emerging leadership manager with Youth Power. Okay. And some people said that their favorite slogan is "Just Keep Swimming." We have someone who said that food is life. They do work around juvenile justice, and they're a dietitian with the juvenile justice system. And I think that's about it. Anyone else want to share where they're from and what their favorite slogans are, or what slogan would be a representation of your life? Okay, we have a couple more folks typing in the chat box. So.
Brittany, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. Okay, we have one more. Elijah, who is his favorite slogan is, "Let us not grow weary in our well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." That's a good one, especially when it comes to the work that we're doing in the system. Okay, thank you guys that participated in that little icebreaker. So the objective for today, we hope that at the end of this webinar you will have a better understanding of the purpose of youth focus groups and why they are used. We hope that you can identify the steps and components of conducting youth focus groups, understand the basics of how to develop a focus group using various designs, methods, and formats, how to facilitate successful and effective focus group, and gathering the needed information. And so depending on whatever needed information, whatever information you need, we hope that you can structure your focus group techniques around that. And understanding how to make your youth feel comfortable during a focus group. Okay, so right now we have a little activity. I wanted to have you guys help me create a word cloud, and with the word cloud, I want you to tell me what words come to mind when you think about a youth focus group. Like what do you think about when you hear youth focus group? I see that some folks are typing in the public chat box. However, you can start typing in the word cloud message box as well. Okay, so we have feedback, we have informative, we have choices, youth voice, inclusive, we have choice, leadership, skills, we have empowering, fun, peer, learning, enlightenment, support, listening, okay. We have sharing ideas, we have fun and acceptable, educational. Okay, those are all pretty good words to describe a focus group, and so depending on what we are conducting a focus group for, it can be all of those things, or it can be multiple things at one time. And so the main focus when you do a focus group is gathering the material and feedback from young people that you can use to help drive the work that we do. So next we have a poll, and I would like for you all to just kind of give me a yes or a no if you have ever facilitated or participated in a youth focus group before. Okay, so it looks like we have a pretty good percentage of people who have participated or facilitated a focus group, a youth focus group. We have 70% that have said yes. Now we have 71.4% that have said yes, and then we have 28.5% that have said no. If you have participated in a focus group, can you guys share in the chat box, like, what were some of your thoughts on how that focus group went for you? It can be whether or not you actually facilitated the focus group or just participated in the focus group. What were your thoughts, and how did you feel about it in general? Okay, so Kylie says that it kind of felt like pulling teeth. It can feel like that sometimes. It was difficult to get young people, it was difficult to get youth to open up. Okay. Okay. Jessica Anderson shared that gathered feedback from youth on menus, hard to get feedback from youth, poor at utilizing descriptors as to why they didn't like a certain item. Okay, Sarah Hansen, difficult to ensure that youth aren't telling you what they think you want to hear instead of their honest thoughts. Okay. And we have one more person typing. So when you initially first begin doing focus group, those are definitely some of the things that may happen or may take place. It is kind of difficult to get information out of young people, especially if there are some barriers or some blocks where they just don't want to open up. And so today we're going to talk about different ways and different things that you guys can put in place to kind of help young people to open up a little bit more. And if you do run into those situations where young people don't want to open up, how can we get them to open up in a way that they feel comfortable? Okay, we have someone who said that facilitators needed to allow space for quieter youth to share to avoid being drowned out by those who are outspoken. Okay, we do talk about that a little bit later. I had trouble wording questions in a way that would elicit responses and would be clear. Too many tried to be cool for their peers, and so it felt unnatural. Okay, those are pretty much what we've dealt with in the past, and I think over the years we've kind of developed a strategy to kind of help us better facilitate these groups. So moving forward, so we have what is a focus group, and so a focus group is a process to collect information through a guided discussion based on a specific topic or need. And so your discussion for your focus group would be based on what your need is. And so, for example, one of the things that Youth United have facilitated a focus group on is training topics. And so one of those things that we did was kind of get young people in a room and talk to them about different things as it relates to training and skill building and things that they wanted to learn and how they felt that would be beneficial for them. And so what we did was pull them in a room and talk about those different training topics and different presentations or skill building workshops that they needed, and then we created a lot of our activities and youth involvement projects around those topics that young people felt were needed. And so that's something to think about. And then they are also instructed and directed, but then there is also room for explanation. They can yield a lot of information in a relatively short time. And collected information includes feedback, insights, ideas, and more about designated topics. And usually we have about a range of 6 to 20 people. I prefer not to go over 20 people because once you get a group bigger than that, it kind of tend to get a bit overwhelming trying to make sure you get the responses from everyone and make sure there's no one that is kind of overshadowing the conversation. And so once you begin to have a little bit more than 20 people, you have to think about how to reshape the focus group and maybe do it in a different way. And so we'll get into that a little bit later as well. Okay, so when to do focus group. When you are considering an introduction of a new program, a project, or a service, so if you are at an agency or a part of an organization and you're trying to implement a new youth program or youth component and you're not quite sure like how to design that component, this would be a good time for you to get some feedback from some young people who may be involved in that program later on down the line. When you want to gain feedback about a current program, project, or service, so if you have a program that is already in place, and then you're wondering, like, hey, how is this program actually working? Is it beneficial? Is it something that you guys like? You know, what do you get out of it? And so those are some things that you can kind of do a focus group around. When you want to support the information gained through written surveys, and so our evaluator here in Wayne County has done a lot of work collecting information from various partners, various youth groups, and young people in the community, and sometimes we have to get a little bit deeper. And so if you feel like a focus group may be beneficial to gain a little bit more insight on that information that was, you know, collected by the evaluator, that might be something that you can do a focus group around. And then we have when you want authentic youth input and youth voice about particular topics. So next we have why youth focus group. So the big overall purpose of a focus group is to collect data and input from young people in the community, an agency, a youth group, or an organization. And so, like I said before, if you're implementing a new program or some type of new project and you want to have feedback and input from young people, then host a focus group. That would be something that may be beneficial. I mean, how many times have we had people, especially within our system that we work in, put together these programs and they feel like it may be beneficial. However, you may have some youth or young people who feel like they're not getting the best out of the program. And so when you have cases like that, you want to make sure that you're utilizing some of their input and that their input is also valuable. And so input can be used to help develop additional youth programming projects, gather feedback from existing programs and services, and gather overall youth-friendly ideas and feedback from youth leaders. And then also to support quantitative data. So as we stated before, if there's data that is collected by an evaluator or another person, then we can also have a focus group to kind of gather more supporting evidence to go along with that data. So I have a discussion question for you guys, and I know that we have a few folks from all over, and so I wanted to get an idea of what do you guys think about when you think about your own local community organization or chapter needs, if you're a Youth M.O.V.E. chapter, and what are some of the reasons why you may facilitate a focus group? You can put your answers in the chat box as well. Okay, so we have someone who said system of care, youth feedback and input to find out barriers to the service they are being provided, inform community education and messaging campaigns, okay. I conduct focus groups to obtain menu feedback so more youth-approved items are added to the menu and unlike items are removed. We all know that food is the way to a young person's heart. We also have okay, I'm waiting for a few more folks to type in their responses. But so far, all of those are pretty good examples or reasons as to why you may facilitate a focus group. And so whenever you feel like young people's input may be valuable, just conduct a focus group. A focus group with young people will probably give you more input than you probably would have thought about, on your own, especially because a lot of the programming is being done for young people. So we have someone who said, get feedback on services for being provided and planning for future grant activities. Our program is new, so we are hosting our very first focus group to get the input of the youth and young adults about expectations about the program. Okay, so all of those are definitely good reasons to conduct a focus group, and I'm pretty sure that once you go through the rest of this presentation and you put some of these techniques into play, you will probably get a great amount of input from young people as well. And this is also just to say, let me say this. Just because you're just now starting to do focus group does not mean that you're going to get everything you need the first time around. You may have to do more than one focus group or more than one round of focus group to get to where you guys need to be in whatever program or, activities you guys are conducting. And so just keep that in mind as well. Okay, so moving forward, I'm going to hand it over to Kamarian, and he's going to take it from here.
Hello. Okay, before conducting a focus group, first you need two things. One, you need your goal. Second, you need your population of focus, which is basically the age range or your age range that you're trying to get. Other things to think about are location, prepare focus group protocol, questions, and consent forms. You also have to recruit your participants. And the main thing is conducting discussions.
And so when you're conducting your discussions, you want to make sure you have a facilitator as well as a recorder. It's very, very difficult for someone to facilitate a discussion with young people as well as record. And so you may miss some information that is being shared. And so having at least one recorder or two recorders will help to make sure that all of the information being shared is documented and recorded. Okay? And so once you do that, you will also be able to analyze that data and share it with whoever you did the focus group with or whoever needs to have that information. So,
What is your goal? Ask yourself, why are you conducting the focus group? What do you hope to get out of the focus group? Who is your population of focus? The focus group should consist of a representation of those whose opinion you are concerned about. It is important to gather a group of people that will help you reach your goal, whether that's youth in the community, youth staff, youth receiving services, transitional age youth, students, whoever were. Maybe it's a youth group like Cornerstone or YAP. How do you plan to gather information? Now the things are like basic interviews or interactive focus groups. Basic interviews consist of predetermined questions, open-ended questions, and follow-up questions if needed. Interactive focus groups are small group discussions, voting with stickers or maybe sticky notes, And then I think community mapping and builder collage are important interactive activities for the focus group. There's also use index cards, round table ranking, speed focus group, and values walk. When and where. Decide where and when your focus group will be held. Set a date and time that is most beneficial for your target population. It is best to consider the evening or the weekend when scheduling focus group for young people. Like there may be young people who are in school, they don't get out till maybe 3, so maybe scheduling something at 5 or 6 on weekdays, or scheduling something on a weekend, so it would be better for a Saturday. The recommended length of a youth focus group should be no longer than 1.5 hours or to 2 hours. If you must do more than 2 hours, be sure to include frequent breaks, interactive activities, food or snacks. That's really important with young people because we can't sit in the space for so long and not fall asleep or try to do other things out and around. Location is also important because you want to make sure youth are able to get to and from the focus group. A lot of youth don't have reliable transportation, so some have to take the bus, some have to use their parents or another form of transportation, but everything is not reliable when it comes to youth. Its location of main bus line, its location off of a main bus line, is it a centralized location or is it easy to find? Think about that. How to recruit participants. You can either call them, email them, or find them. Create flyers, post on social media, which is a big thing. A lot of youth are on social media most of the time of the day, so if you do use social media, that would be a good outreach. Reach out to existing youth groups, schools, and other programs. Encourage youth to bring other youth and offer incentives like stipends, gift cards, community service hours, whatever your organization can offer.
And so when it comes to recruiting participants, you really want to think about who you're looking for and what what population you're trying to reach. And so if you just want to have a focus group with young people who are receiving services, then you want to make sure you're able to pull from those programs that are in the agencies that are providing those services. Or if you are just looking for some general youth from a school setting to implement a new program with the school, then you may want to reach out to the school and ask how can you partner with those young people as well, and just kind of pull from the school and the students as well. And so just think about those things when you want to recruit your participants. We always say that it's easier for us to go to them than have them come to us. And so a lot of times, especially with the transportation barriers that young people face, we always try to find a way to make things a little bit easier. So if we need to go to an agency, or if we need to go to a school or a youth organization that already has a group of young people already there, then that would be the best way to go about doing that as well.
The thing we say is meet youth where they're at. So if they're at a certain location, you can go and meet them there if that's the best solution.
And we always know that it's important to reward young people for their time. And so I always push that we offer an incentive. I know in various areas it's very different. And, some people can provide stipends, some people provide gift cards. We even got to the point where we provided community service hours. So depending on what your funding stream may look like or your budget may look like, if you are not able to provide incentives, like a stipend or a gift card, just make sure you have something that they can utilize. And so I know a lot of high school students and a lot of high school age youth and college age youth, young adults, are actually looking for community service hours. And so just think about those things as well. You can just give them a certain number of hours for their participation. If you set up your focus group series to where you have multiple focus groups in a month or at a time, you can say, hey, we'll give you a stipend or X amount of community service hours for participation in 3 of our focus groups. So you can set it up how you want it to be set up, but we always try to make sure we find some way to reward young people for their time.
Now I'll be handing it back over to Brittany.
Okay, so conducting the focus group. As you're starting your focus group, we don't want to just have young people come in a room and then they're not quite sure what they're there for or why they're there. And so we want to make sure that you're being very welcoming and engaging them in that conversation when they first walk in the room so that they want to be there. And so we want to make sure we welcome and thank young people for coming. You want to review the purpose of your focus group, and like I said, the purpose just depends on what information you're trying to gather. And so based on the information that you're trying to gather and what the goals of your meeting is, you need to make sure you share that information. You also need to collect a consent form. And so when you have young people under the age of 18, it's very important that you have a consent form available for their parent to sign or their guardian to sign so that they have permission to be there and that you have permission to utilize the information shared. When we share our information with our partners or whomever we're doing the focus group for, we do not put names or identifying information. We just simply kind of share what the input was or what the ideas were. We don't necessarily put names. However, we still would like to just be safe and make sure we have consent forms for those young people under the age of 18. So we want to also go over the flow of the meeting, and so just kind of from the beginning, just kind of tell them how the flow of the meeting will be so that they know what to expect. And then, you can also give them an idea of how things could possibly change. Maybe one question may take a little bit longer. And so if you have interactive focus groups, those activities may take a little bit longer as well. And so just keep those things in mind and making sure the people who are participating in your focus group are aware of what they're there for. We have established ground rules and encourage open participation. We always start off with ground rules. I have a list of ground rules that we generally take with us when we do our focus group. However, I also ask for input from young people, and so we'll get back to that a little bit later. But make sure you have ground rules. The ground rules help you set the flow and the way that your focus group is going to, run. And so if you don't have ground rules in place, then it kind of takes away from the group. You may have some, interruptions. You may have some young people who are not quite being, respectful. It just depends on the group as well. And so just make sure you have ground rules in place so that everyone is able to share what they need to share and everyone understands that, they have room to, participate if they want to. Okay, so we also set the tone for how you want your focus group to go. Make sure youth understand why they are there. Be sure to include icebreakers and breaks. As stated before, if you do a focus group over 2 hours, you want to make sure you include activities and breaks and food. It is very, very important to include those icebreakers, and I think it's important to get young people to open up. It kind of helps warm them up to the group. It kind of helps them break out of their shell and actually, feel the need to engage with everyone else. And if you don't have icebreakers in the beginning, it can kind of hinder the results of your focus group. And so having those icebreakers are super, super important. And then you want to make sure you include breaks as needed. If you feel like after a couple of questions or a couple of activities, young people aren't really, focused or they're not really engaged, you want to give them a break, go get a minute to refresh, and then come back, and then you guys can start back up again. And when we start back up, I like to start back up with an icebreaker, a short icebreaker, just to kind of, get the group back to the momentum that we were in the beginning. Use basic interview questions and formats. You can do interactive focus group methods, or a combination of both to gather your information. If you do a 2-hour focus group, you can start off the beginning of your focus group doing the basic question piece, interviewing piece, and so just having a general conversation and sitting around a table talking to a group of young people, and then you can end it with some interactive activities. Or you can just mix it up. You can do all interactive and then allow young people to just do activities from the very beginning. It's all about how you want your focus group to flow. Okay? Make sure all opinions and answers are heard or written. And so, as stated before, we want to have a recorder who is able to jot down all of the information being shared. And as a facilitator, we cannot facilitate a discussion as well as make sure we get all of the notes. You may be able to take some notes, but there is a good chance that you can miss something. And so just to be safe, you want to have someone there to help record the information needed. And so we also want to allow young people to share their opinions and make sure their answers are being heard. And so those people, I know we have someone in the chat box who talked about people showing off for their friends or people, taking over the conversation. Those ground rules will help you set the tone for those kind of situations, and then they will also allow you to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. And sometimes to alleviate those situations, I use a talking piece. A talking piece can be like a little stress ball that's being tossed around, so whoever is talking, if you don't have the stress ball in your hand, then you cannot speak at the time. So those are some ideas that you can put into play. We also have an opportunity for young people to write out their feelings and opinions and thoughts. And so we do have young people who may not feel comfortable speaking up out loud or in a group. However, I always have an extra set of sticky notes or an extra set of index cards nearby so that people can write their opinion on those cards. And then I ask if it's okay for me to share it with the group. If they don't feel comfortable with me sharing it with the group, I just give it to the recorder so that they make sure they have that in their, their transcript. And so those are some things you can think about as well. And then we always, like I said, provide participants with an incentive and then thank them for coming. Okay, so ground rules. As stated before, your ground rules provide a sense of structure for the group that allows for a productive conversation. It also helps make the youth feel comfortable. It also helps the youth feel comfortable and help with confidentiality. Confidentiality is so very important, and this is also why we have the consent forms as well. And so we do have a line on our consent form that talks about confidentiality. And so the ground rules as well talk about confidentiality, and it allows young people to understand that whatever is said in this room or whatever is said within this group stays in this group. And we know how youth are. Sometimes, they can tend to forget, like, hey, they don't quite or they may not quite understand what confidentiality means. However, we do kind of refresh their minds on the ground rules and confidentiality as we go throughout the group as well. And so 2 ways to set your ground rules. You can let each group come up with their own set of rules, or you can come in with a prepared list that you have already made up. And so that's what we do most of the time. And then I go over the list and I ask young people if they have anything that they would like to add, and then we go from there. Okay, so we have review, transcribe, and analyze. So the feedback that is gathered is very, very important and is very, very useful in some way. And so what we do often here is kind of type up those notes and kind of review them and see how we can utilize that feedback within our planning meetings or our meetings that are used to help put the projects together that we're working on, or whatever the need is or whatever the focus group was done for. You want to make sure the information that you collected is definitely usable for that reason. And so feedback from the group is collected by note takers and recorders. In addition to taking notes by hand, you can use a tape recorder at the permission of the group. Sometimes we use a tape recorder and sometimes we do not. And so it just kind of depends on how large of a group it is and how intensive the information being collected may be. We also review focus group results with the participants at the end. So even though you have a flow of the day, you want to make sure you have time in there before you dismiss the group to kind of review the results and make sure they don't have any feedback, any additional feedback, or if you missed anything, then they're able to tell you what what you missed, or if needed, you can ask clarifying questions just to kind of, dig a little deeper if needed, but you want to go over the results so that participants understand what you have collected and know what you have on hand that it will be used for the for whatever project is being planned. Okay. So then we have transcribe and analyze the information. And that's what I said earlier. We kind of try to figure out how we can best utilize the information that was shared. And then if we are working with a stakeholder or a partner, we do provide them with a copy of the information, or we share it within the planning meeting that is being used for that program. Okay? I know we're moving a little bit fast, so if anyone has any questions now, feel free to ask those, and I will, start looking into those a little bit after we finish these last couple of slides. But things to remember: using open-ended questions is very important. If you use closed-ended questions, you are most likely not going to get the information that you need. And so we always want to make sure we use open-ended questions and then have some follow-up questions prepared if needed, or just ask those questions as they come up. And so open-ended questions will give you most of the information that you need. Okay? Try to select focus group participants who represent the target population. So when we talk about that, we want to think about what we're doing the focus group for, who we're trying to reach. So, for example, if you're trying to put together a program, let's say if you're trying to put together a program around LGBTQS services, you want to make sure that you have representation of those young people within that group. We cannot sit here and put together a focus group that does not represent the group that we're trying to reach. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're doing something with a school and it's a program that will be implemented into a school, we want to make sure we're talking to those students who are within the school, who have been there, who are engaged in the school body, and we want to make sure we get their input as well. One of the things that we've done, we've worked with a school before in helping them create their own student advisory council. And the purpose of their student advisory council is they wanted to kind of target some of the issues that they felt were being ignored within the school. And so one of those things were unhealthy lunches. And so there were a group of young people who felt like they could get some healthier options for lunch. And so what we did was help them create a project that kind of advocated for them getting healthier options within their school lunches. Okay, so that's another example. As stated before, we want to limit the group of your focus group participants to 6 to 20 people. If you do anything more than 20 people, it then becomes a roundtable discussion. And roundtable discussion was listed in our examples of a way you can do a focus group. If you have more than 20 people, it does become a roundtable discussion, and that's fine, but you just want to keep in mind if you do more than 20 folks, you might have to do small group discussions or roundtable discussions to gather the information you need. And so an example of that would be maybe have 5 different questions or 6 different questions, and the group rotate to each question and, have a discussion around each of those different questions. So that's an example. Multiple focus group to gather as much information that's needed, as stated before. Provide snacks and refreshment. I cannot stress this enough. If you provide snacks and refreshments, you will definitely be surprised at how much youth will be engaged. It's like you give them food or you give them some type of snack and you get as much as you need from them. Okay? So I want you to also keep an open mind. Depending on what you're trying to gather from the young people, some people may not see eye to eye, but also just make sure that you have to keep an open mind and that there can't be any biases. And so you as the facilitator cannot hold any biases, and you just want to make sure you're able to be neutral when you're facilitating these discussions. And then allow young people a chance to actually talk about some of the the issues that they're talking about. You know, having some healthy discussion is pretty good, and you can just kind of jot down some notes from those discussions. So good note keeping is central to the success of the focus group. If we need to take notes. That is key. If you do not take notes, then there will be nothing for you to review or look back on if you need some, input for your project. Flexibility goes a long way. Even though we may have set our focus group to flow a certain way and it does not, it's okay for things to be switched around. You may decide to do another activity instead of the one that you had in place because everyone may not be as engaged in that activity, and that's okay. These are young people that we're working with, and it's okay to be flexible. And then lastly, we have allow youth to be themselves and have fun. I always tell people, hey, don't look at me, don't take me too seriously, don't look at me as an adult. I am here to have fun and just talk to you like we're having a conversation about whatever it is that needs to happen, okay? And so the more welcoming and the more open that you are in terms of gathering your information, you will be surprised at how they open up about whatever is being discussed. So some advantages and disadvantages of our focus group. We want to make sure we provide insight. So advantages are they provide insight to different things. They reveal a consensus and diversity of the participants' opinions. They allow group interactions to build on each other's ideas. And then they also provide opportunities to explore reasons behind the response. And so if you were to provide a question to the group, and they give you an answer, but you're not quite sure, allow them, like I said, to have those discussions and talk about why they said what they said or why they feel the way they do. And from that, you are able to take those notes and compile what you may need for your input as well. And some disadvantages of a focus group is groups are small and may not be representative of the full population. And so, like I said before, representation is important. Depending on who you're doing the focus group for and what you're trying to gather, you want to make sure that the representatives in those groups represent what you're trying to do. Generate a lot of information that may be difficult to analyze. A lot of information can be shared with the group, and so when you think about the information being shared, not only do you want to figure out a way to use it or implement it, but you also want to make sure that it's valuable. And so it can be difficult to analyze. However, how can we best utilize the input from these young people in our project and building what we have, what we're working on? Information can be biased, and like I said, you as a facilitator have to definitely not be biased, and so you are supposed to be the neutral person in that discussion. And so if you find that there is some biases within the discussion, how do we bring the conversation back to being neutral and also letting those young people know, like, hey, I understand why you feel this particular way. However, let's look at it this way and see what we can also try. So not necessarily ignoring how they're feeling, but just making sure we're taking everyone's input into play. And then we have outspoken individuals can dominate the discussion. I know someone mentioned that in the chat box a little bit earlier. And So one of the things that happens that we do when that happens is, we have the talking piece, and that talking piece is tossed around as we go throughout our discussion. And one of the rules for that particular session may be, if you do not have the talking piece, you are not allowed to speak until you get the talking piece. And so it kind of helps with the flow of your activities as well as your discussion a little bit more, and it kind of alleviates the people who dominate the discussion all the time. And so then also it's okay to say, hey, I know we've heard from you quite a bit. Let's see if we can hear from someone else as well. Okay, so the role of a facilitator. Give youth a chance to think and speak after asking the question. We may ask a question, and sometimes people may feel like it's necessary, we want answers right here and there. Young people need to think about their answers sometimes, and so giving them that space to think about it and before speaking also allows them to think about how they want to share and what they want to share. Depending on the information being asked, they may not quite feel safe sharing that information, and so they're just trying to figure out a way to word it and put it out there. Phrase the same question in a different way if needed. If you have someone who may not necessarily understand the question, it's okay to rephrase that question as many times as needed until they are able to understand it. I oftentimes break down the questions in multiple different ways, and then, we try to get as much as we can from whomever. If they still don't understand, then we'll just have a smaller conversation on the side and just kind of break that information down a little deeper as well. Allow youth to share and discuss their different points of views. And so a little bit earlier I talked about letting them engage in discussion. It's okay for that to actually happen. A lot of people may think, well, I don't want them to start arguing. Well, no, it is okay for them to have some healthy discussion. However, if it is a point where you feel like the discussion may be getting a little bit heated or a little bit overwhelming, then we may take a break from the discussion, and you try to bring the group back to the initial reason for the question and then go from there. Ask follow-up questions if information is needed. Maintain neutrality while listening to the youth. We talked about that. Avoid offering advice or solution. Sometimes we may hear some feedback or we may hear some input, and in our heads we may think, oh, it's okay for me to tell them what I really feel, but it's really not for us to tell them what we really feel. The point of the focus group is to gather feedback from them, and so we want to also keep that in mind. Avoid giving them advice and solutions as well. Make sure to get everyone to contribute if possible. Like I said before, if you have someone who may not quite feel comfortable speaking out loud, it's okay to give them other options to express themselves. And so sometimes we use index cards or Post-it notes. Sometimes we use the poster paper and allow them to write their responses on the poster paper if they don't feel like talking out loud. You just have to kind of do what you need to do based on the group. And so I always have extra materials on hand just in case the initial plan doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go. And so I always have room for young people to kind of share their information in writing if needed, if they don't feel like talking out loud. Ask if anyone has any comments or current questions before moving on. Look around the room and make brief eye contact, especially with those who may not have spoken. And that goes back to the talking piece. And so if you have someone who's dominating the conversation, then you as a facilitator can say, hey, let's give someone else a chance to speak. And then you make that eye contact with them, and then you also ask if they would like the talking piece as well. By engaging, understanding, and be engaging, understanding, and flexible. If a youth does not feel comfortable talking in front of the group, allow them to write down their answers, and then summarize what you think you have heard and ask the group if they agree. Okay. And then going back to things remembered, I know we went over that, but just kind of keep in mind all of these things as you're wrapping up your focus group. As you are facilitating your focus group, it's okay to be flexible. Just keep these things in mind because they are very, very important. And so I'm not quite sure how I skipped over those slides, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. And so now I think we can go ahead and do our last word cloud. I know this was quite a bit of information, and then some of you may have some questions after this, and so feel free to give me your one-word evaluation on how you felt the presentation or the information that was given to you went. And then after that, we will move forward to questions.
Brittany, while we're waiting, I just want to say thank you both for participating and presenting today. I love some of the things that you discussed, especially around creating a space for young people to feel comfortable with open up. I know things that we have definitely done has tried to relate to young people and tried to just be real. So if we had a focus group maybe focused around wraparound, starting the conversation, even though we know we have a list of questions, starting the conversation with basic questions around, you know, what is it that you like about wraparound? And then what are the things you completely hate? It really helped us get a lot of information from young people and to start seeing what they were passionate about and what things really bother them. And another thing that you discussed was the confidentiality and getting consent forms. I think it's also important in the beginning of focus groups to explain what those forms are going to be used for and who will see those forms for young people, even down to their signatures on the sign-in sheet. Just being able to explain who will have access to this information is sometimes a way that kind of breaks the ice. And as you discussed before, having the other forms of feedback, like having the index cards, using the butcher paper, building in as many activities as you can to get young people to open up and express their feelings, as well as providing things for like snacks and fidgets for them to fidget with as they're talking.
Yep. And so even if it's not a focus group, whenever you have young people in the room for a long time, you want to make sure you're engaging them and that they have their attention. Jasmine brought up a good example with the fidgets. We have a box of fidgets that we keep on hand just for, you know, whatever activity we may be conducting when it comes to young people, whether it's a focus group or a workshop or a training. We always have some type of fidget, and, you know, young people play with them. Or we have coloring sheets. You know, coloring sheets are very, very relaxing. Just something to kind of help, you know, help them feel more relaxed as well as youth-friendly. And so it's not always like, hey, this adult is talking to me and I really don't care. You know, sometimes we want to make sure that they feel welcome, and it's creating an environment that they feel like they can be themselves in. And so I have a few people who gave us some evaluation feedback. And so we have engaging, thank you. We have informative, educational, inspiring. Do we have a few more folks who would like to give us some one-word evaluation? We have action. Okay, so while we are waiting for I'm getting a little tongue-tied over here. While we are waiting for some of our participants to also fill in the evaluation, one-word evaluation, I did get a question in the public chat box, and so What are ways we can make sure young adults know that their input has been put into action? One of the things that we do is kind of share, like I said, we share the feedback with them at the end to make sure we have heard everything. But then we also share, depending on the group, we share that feedback with the leader of the group. Or if it's a group at a school, we share the feedback with the school, and they can also kind of have an idea of what the feedback looks like. But when we implement those programs or projects or activities, we want to make sure that, hey, is this what you wanted? If it's not what you wanted, let us know so we can make sure it's changed. And so one of our very first focus groups we did it around community activities for young people. And we had a lot of young people who felt like there wasn't a lot of things for them to do, and there weren't a lot of job opportunities for high school age youth. And so one of the things we did was pull together a young career fair for youth, for young people, so that they could go and apply for these jobs, and then they could also practice interviewing skills, and they could practice how to create their resume. And so that was something that was created from the feedback that the young people gave us. We had a lot of young people who said, hey, I don't feel like they have a lot of opportunities for us to get jobs out here, so what can we do about that? And so Youth United actually took the initiative and created a job fair for young people. And the age, we had a specific age range on it. It was for high school and young adults ages 14 to 24. And so we also know that looking for a job is kind of hard when you're 14, 15, and 16 years old. And so sometimes you have to go through an extra process in terms of getting a work permit. And so we just kind of looked for those opportunities that kind of alleviated some of those extra steps as well. Does that kind of answer your question, Madeline?
And I think another example could be when we facilitated a focus group around our social marketing, we were doing informational cards for young people. Well, actually, we were doing informational flyers. So to highlight all of our events, we were doing flyers for the community, and we were doing brochures. And we actually did a focus group for young people to say, hey, what are some things that you are really interested in? Is this pamphlet something that would make you want to look at it? Is it something, if you saw it in the waiting room, would you pick it up? And they told us no. So we sat and we worked with those young. Go ahead, Brittany.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to add that we actually had to take their feedback and revamp the whole card, and they were like, nope, this is not it. And so with that feedback, we created that card and had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what it looks like. You know, they didn't even like the colors. That's how bad it was. And so using that input and then actually having them see their input being into play is very, very valuable for them. And it also allows them to also want to participate in other focus groups and other youth-related activities because they understand that their input is valuable. Are there any other questions? And then I also noticed that we have a few more words added to our word cloud. We have inspiring, we have action, and we have clear. And so I see we have about 20 participants in the group. It would be, you guys don't want to leave us a word. It's okay. You can just leave us one word or, it's up to you. But I just really would like to hear your feedback on the presentation as a whole. And even if you didn't like it, if there's something that could be changed, just let us know. And we will make sure to keep that in mind next time around. And then also, if you have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat box.
Okay. As we give people a few more minutes to get their questions and things in the chat box, I definitely want to remind you all to please stay on for the evaluation form that will pop up at the end of this presentation. Please stay on and complete that for us. Again, like Brittany's mentioned, we really could use your feedback with letting us know how this presentation went and what are some things that we could do to improve it moving forward. The feedback form is also in the chat box, so please click it there if you don't see it pop up at the end of this webinar. And I'll turn it back over for Brittany to make sure there's no more questions or comments. Hearing none. Oh, Madeline said, I have a lot of new ideas. Now, thank you.
I am so glad. I'm so glad. And you know what? The interactive focus group actually are, like, you wouldn't even look at it as a focus group. We've done them in a variety of ways and formats. And so you don't even have to use the ideas that I gave you, but we just want to make sure that we are finding a way to engage our young people the best way we can. And so, having something interactive or something that they can actually participate in as opposed to just sitting around a table or sitting around in a circle talking is better than just talking. Like, I can't express it enough. And so the way that we do it is we try to do a variety of all of them, and then you also want to gauge your group too. So like I said, always have some extra tricks in your pocket just in case. You may have a set plan when you actually go and facilitate your focus group, but then you may see like, hey, this is not quite working. What can we do to change this? What can we do to make it better? How can we better engage these young people? And go from there. We always have a pocket full of extra stuff just in case. That's just how we do things because we work with young people.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for Youth United and Youth M.O.V.E. Michigan for presenting about youth focus groups today. Thank you all.
I have a question, Jasmine. I'm sorry. So we have a question, and the question is, what is the most common challenge faced when working with large age group? That's a pretty good question, especially for us here at Youth United and Youth M.O.V.E. Michigan. We actually had a discussion about this a little bit earlier, and we were just trying to figure out a way to engage both groups. And so our age range is from 13 to 25, which is a large spread group. And so what we did was what we did earlier was have a conversation on how we can better engage by age ranges instead of just Youth United as a whole. And so what we did was separate the age ranges from 13 to 17 and then 18 to 25. And so our hope is that with the feedback that we received from other folks before and then the conversations that we had with our leadership earlier today, that would actually work better for us in the long run. And so one thing that we had to do was kind of separate our age ranges. Not to say that we no longer want to serve or, include the older young adults. However, we just want to make sure that we're putting programs and activities in place that they can relate to. And so because that age range is so widespread, we want to make sure we're reaching everyone. And so what we did was break it up, and then we're going to target our activities and projects based on those age ranges. And so
I think it's also a conflict of interest, like the younger age group might want this done and want to do this, while the older age group want to do this, because the older age group is able to understand more and tell you more of what they want in a deeper meaning. While the kids, they can just, they can tell you straightforward what they want, but it's not like they can really always understand what you're saying or what you're trying to say.
Does that answer your question? Okay, I don't see any additional questions. Before I hand it back over to Jasmine, I did want to share my contact information. And so you guys can reach out to myself or Kamayan via phone or email. And then you're also more than welcome to connect with us on our social media pages and email us at our Youth United email, and we will definitely try to get back to you guys as soon as possible. If you have any additional questions about the presentation or about how to conduct focus groups or anything of that nature, feel free to reach out to me. I'm very, very responsive when it comes to email, and so if you have an email, a question that you would like to send me at a later date, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Brittany.
You're
Again,
welcome.
United, for your presentation. It was amazing, and it definitely gave a lot of great tips and techniques on how to facilitate youth-led focus groups. One thing I definitely did want to mention is focus groups are another way for young people to show their leadership skills. So if you do have youth leaders who are strong and are comfortable with facilitating, definitely work with equipping your young people to facilitate these focus groups or co-facilitate, depending on what the needs are. That being said, I want to thank you all again for participating in April's Direct Connect on conducting youth focus groups. Again, Direct Connect is really just a virtual forum for the youth workforce to develop professional skills and connect as peers via virtual training opportunities. So this just is a way for us to connect and make sure that we're learning and are always in the know of what's happening within the youth workforce. If you all have any questions or need anything in the meantime, please let us know. Again, I'm Jasmine Boatwright with Youth M.O.V.E. National. If you would like to contact me, and our next Direct Connect will be on engaging young people who have, from a trauma-informed approach, especially young people who have been survivors of domestic violence. And so I'm really interested in what that topic and what this webinar will be about. So hopefully you all are able to join us. And again, please stay on for the survey or look in the chat box and complete our survey. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.